everybody? Cam K here, your wingman for the NASCAR Pinty Series Power Hour here on GeForce TV. A little bit of a different look so far to start our newest episode. I can't believe we're already on, I believe it's episode 17 of the show. And we're coming down to the very end of the NASCAR Pinty Series season for 2022. It is an off week, so I thought, why not take the opportunity and we'll do a bit of a year in review tonight. If you are tuning in, I see we've got Will Badger here on GeForce TV on YouTube. Got some people probably tuning in on Facebook. Finally got that figured out thanks to the amazing Spencer Mullen once again for figuring that out. Just want to make sure that we can ensure that you guys can hear me. If not, we'll turn up the microphone a little bit here. I think that might be a little bit better for us. So, we're here. I can't believe it. The finale, essentially, of the season is sadly upon us. The Fall Brawl weekend. That's right. You see it right in the corner of the screen. The Pinty's Fall Brawl, the season finale at Delaware Speedway, set to take place in about a week. We've got the rest of this week into next week, and then it's looking like the season will finally wrap up. We know pretty well what the championship is going to look like. We know pretty well who the champion is going to be. But, of course, things are still up for grabs for second in the championship, third, fourth. Fifth is pretty much secured. And then, of course, we head into the offseason with hopefully a lot of exciting news to come for the series, for the competitors, for next year. Obviously, it is going to be something to watch. Yes, Kyle Edgar, the hair is gone. The hair is gone. Again, DiVincenzo gonna just making sure that he's made sure that he's known in the chat here. Tim Gerald, Tyler, I thought you're gonna come out and run at least hopefully one race. Hopefully see you at Delaware. I know you've done a couple of Pro Challenge races, but hopefully we'll get to see you in the series next year, in the APC series. We've got obviously the standings. Tim, I just want to say thanks as well. Nice to meet you at CTMP finally. Tim Gerald, RWR, you're hilarious, Kyle. RWR in general is hilarious. I don't think I saw Kyle. You weren't at CTMP, were you? I don't think, but there's definitely a lot of fun heading into next year. Probably be there watching. No. That's not what we want to see. If not, APC, maybe Super Stocks would be cool to see. I definitely got to see the 97 out there. I finally got an opportunity to finally go see the APC series for the first time, and there was no 97 out there. So disappointment. Kyle, you were there. Okay. But we're here. We're going to talk about the season so far. Obviously, there's been some pretty well dominating times for the year. We've got to go over all the races that we've had, 12 out of 13. First question out there for the fans. Do we want more than 13 races heading into next year? Obviously, I know that there's some people there's some people that would like to see more races, 15, maybe more. I think 15 is kind of max that you can go here. We don't have a full season slate. I also would love to see combination events with APC series, OSS, Super Stocks, as many type of combo events as possible. Tyler says 16, Kyle says 15. I mean, the reality is, if you're going to go that route, you're going to more than likely, they're going to go out of province for it. I would like to see 2 at Delaware. I think Delaware's gotten to a point now where the racing is just so good. It's interesting. We don't. That's the problem, is we want a lot, but we don't have to cover the budgets. And I know that there's some team owners that are looking that way, that they want to see some more come out there. The problem is it's expenses, right? And I know that there's right now the car count for Delaware is looking the highest that we've seen on the oval tracks. Again, that's if everybody ends up racing. If we end up having everybody that's said they were going to go, that is going to go. Obviously, we'll talk about that more next week when we get a little bit more clarity as to who is and is not going to actually make it to the Delaware event. Bowman Gray, let's go to an actual racing facility, Tyler. Not a place where we already junk up enough cars. Can you imagine how many we destroy there? There's pretty well a pretty good sense of who's going to be there. And if everything comes together, which is a huge if, we're looking at the high end of 25 plus for the finale. I'm hoping so. I'm hoping so, Tim. I definitely think Ray Morneau Jr., that would be really cool if that can happen. I mean, he has posted that he has the opportunity to race, but has actually posted that he needs help. They had a sponsor that pulled out, unfortunately, and that's just racing nowadays, right? Hopefully they'll be able to put together a program. It is with a pretty reputable team, so it wouldn't be like one of those run at the back. He'd be in pretty good equipment. I just don't know. It's a tough deal to put a program together in the last couple of weeks of the season, and hopefully he'll be able to do it so that we're able to get to see him a bit more next year. But we'll go in through and take a look kind of as to next week who could be. I mean, the highest number that theoretically could be out there, and that's if every single driver that had said that they were going to, every car and team that said they were going to, all the plans happen. There's potentially up there 31 that we're looking at. That would probably be, it's probably not going to happen. That's way too many that I expect would actually be able to follow through. That's not including if, say, Western drivers wanted to come out and run the final race of the season. Whether or not they do that, it's hard to say. We've seen Jamie Krizik, we've seen Chantel Kalika come out and run the past couple of years at Jukasa. Jukasa's another one that people would like to see back. Obviously, that was the home of the finale for many years. Whether or not that actually happens or not, I mean, it's still in limbo there. But the hope is that for expansion next year, I mean, that Tony Spiteri coming on board, you've got a lot of names that have really invested the time. And we mentioned last week at CTMP that they had representation from Chevrolet Canada there, talking about further expansion for Chevrolet. I mean, we've talked about them having the Chevrolet Silverado 250 for the Truck Series, and it would be nice to see Chevrolet sponsor a race in general, and it is something that we could see happen. Whether or not it ends up happening, hard to say. Yeah, the schedule there, Kyle, I mean, I think would be very interesting. You got to get rid of New Hampshire, really? Bristol, yes. New Hampshire, I don't know why we want to go back there. That wasn't very, very good racing at all. CTMP, Toronto, I don't know what the spelling is there. Schweeken, Newfoundland, Delaware, Edmonton, Saskatoon, Jukasa, Bristol, and whatever this last thing is that you guys repeating from last time. Bristol would be a fun one because Pinty's already sponsors there. If they found a way to get everybody down there for a small, portion of money, absolutely do a combo event. Probably the same time as they did something with ARCA. I mean, these guys would probably do really well at Bristol. It would be a very fun race. These cars would be fun to see. I just don't know. I don't think it would ever be possible. Standings so far for this season. as we see them rotate through us, I definitely want to thank Matthew Manor and the folks at NASCAR. Some amazing photos of the drivers here. Wide World of Motorsports for the photo of Brian Cathcart. It was impossible to find a photo of him. Al Harris has a couple photos in here, and Team 3 Red for the photo of Brett Taylor as well. So we'll see the scrolling of these. Yeah, they don't have to handle good, though, Tyler. That's the thing. He wants a good handling race car. That makes it too easy for you guys. You got to be able to work for it. Yeah, I that's the one thing I hear about. Oh, it's too hard to handle. Well, your job is to drive the car, right? Well, make it fun. So we got the 20 guys here. We'll talk about each and every driver here. Marc-Antoine Cameron, obviously, points leader. You can talk about, I'm sure it'll be in the chat here, about the situation with the Paille team this year. But without a doubt, they have been the lights-out favorite. They've been the best of the best. Led the most laps. Marc-Antoine has had a breakout season. We'll talk about it when we get to the results later on, however, is that a lot of races he still did have bad luck. His luck was a little bit better. At the end of the day, what can you do, right? The championship's pretty well set heading into Delaware. Second place is still not set. However, DJ Kennington right now still trying to get up there. He's third out of the top four, essentially, are battling for that. You see Kevin Lacroix there, 33 back. DJ's 34 and Alex is 36 back. Any of those positions could switch. I think DJ probably the best out of those at the bunch there at Delaware Speedway. Triton. Then you got Andrew, LP Dumoulin, and Brandon Watson. Brandon should be pretty good, as well as Trayton Lapsovich, Gary Clute, and JP Bergeron out there. DJ Kennington, of course, won a race here last year at Delaware Speedway. So did Andrew Ranger. Actually, DJ won two of them last year. Trayton was pretty quick in all of them. Got wrecked out in the finale, bumped and moved in the second, and Brandon Watson as well was really fast. Didn't end up getting to the place where we kind of expected him. And the funny thing is that DJ really wasn't involved in the championship hunt until the middle of the season, and then he started to really have some success. Tagliani back there in fourth place, kind of quiet this year, just the one win at Saskatoon. LP Dumoulin's been really the quietest of the champions that we've seen this year. Really surprising. Andrew Ranger, of course, he's got a win at Chaudier this year. Gary Clute had opportunity to win a couple of races this year. His middle of the season run really struggled. JP Bergeron's had impressive moments, but is another driver who, towards the middle of the season, really had a lot of problems. The only car not to finish at Oshweeken, had mechanical issues at iCar, kind of rebounded a bit at CTMP, but we do know that there's still a race on the oval here to go. So obviously it's a tough season all around for some of these names that we kind of expected. Brandon Watson's one that I kind of would have thought that we would have seen a bit more. He really struggled at times on the road course. He started to improve, which is definitely showing that he can be up there next year, as long as he's back next year. Dexter Stacey just outside the top 10. Mark Dilley's not made every race this season. He's still 12 in the point standings, 13th. This year, Wallace Stacey, Glenn Stiers, Larry Jackson. Stiers and Wallace have made the races. Brian Cathcart and Larry Jackson haven't made every race this season, but they have made the most out of the other names. Rafael Lessard, TJ Renamato, Sam Fellows, and Brett Taylor are your top 20. It was Trayton. Trayton's luck, really not his own fault, though. A lot of mechanical problems at the beginning of the year. And that really kind of set it in stone. He was much better throughout the lower half of the season. You'll see when we go to the results. It was tough, though. At the end of the day, Trayton has had a way better second half of the season. Brandon Watson had a better start to his season. I think we could say DJ Kennington better from the middle onward. Andrew Ranger has had a really tough middle of the season onward. So there's definitely names out there that could have had better runs this year. It's just that's the racing game, right? And there's a couple of these guys out there that could have won multiple times. DJ obviously could have won at Chaudier. LP Dumoulin could have won several times. It just comes down to, at the end, whether there was luck, whether there was accidents. I mean, Trayton Lapsovich, for example, if not for those mechanical failures, probably would have been up there and probably would have done very well in multiple races, but didn't get the opportunity to do so. Andrew Ranger is a similar case in that White Motorsports, for the amount of cars that they had, it is a very, very tough situation to see that they had mechanical failures almost every week. The 27, the 0, the 64, the 2, it was nonstop all season long. And unfortunate that the White Motorsports cars really did have those problems, whereas the mechanical issues this year seem to have been fixed for DJ Kennington. He hasn't had mechanical failures compared to where he had them in the past. Oddly enough, another name that you never hear mechanical failures for is LP Dumoulin, and never really had it. He did have his accidents, a couple of really bad accidents this year, but he's another one where it didn't really seem to affect him. I think the 71 had a lot of mechanical problems this year. Larry Jackson had some, but also had some good runs. We're going to get to these results here, and they're going to scroll across the screen similar to this. We'll talk about this. Is Trayton Lapsovich winning the first race at Sunset Speedway over Rafael Lessard? Again, there was a really close finish. Camarand and Lessard made contact, and Trayton got the win. Then it was Kevin Lacroix out at CTMP over Tagliani, and Dexter Stacey getting his best career finish in third in a solid run for EHR, but that's another team we'll talk about in the future here. Andrew Ranger won at Chaudier in a fantastic battle. There's a great photo with him and his crew chief, Caden Lapsovich, who I hope to see next year in a car. I think he's been back as a crew chief, but I would like to see him in a car. And Marc-Antoine Camarand over Trayton Lapsovich. Trayton definitely owed him one after the race out in Newfoundland. Kevin Lacroix really was dominant in Toronto over Andrew Ranger, LP Dumoulin. They had the field covered. The top three were way out in front of the carnage. Race number 6, Camarand again out there in Edmonton over Kevin Lacroix and Andrew Ranger. But when we got to Saskatoon, things really took a different turn as DJ Kennington was the one that got a side-by-side win over Andrew Ranger. Fantastic finish. Kyle Steckley 4th in his very first NASCAR Pinty Series start, almost a podium. And then it was Alex Tagliani in the second race coming out of middle of the field and dominating. It's a great picture there with him and Fritz getting back the 18 into victory lane. Then you got to Alex Gannett in GP3R, and Alex was not expected to win. There was a big crash with the 96, the 04, and the 47 in the final couple of laps. And Ohsweken Speedway, first time on dirt, Trayton Lapsovich got his second career victory, or a second victory over one of the biggest names there, Stuart Friesen. Jake Sheridan from the APC Series fishing third. Circuit iCar, this wasn't very good of a race, but Kevin Lacroix, first win for the Napa Colors for him. Marc-Antoine Camarand, Alex Gannett, Alex LeBay 4th in his return. And then, of course, our last race at CTMP. The 96 was pretty untouchable. Lacroix was up there for a little bit. There's some contact towards the middle of the pack here. But overall, this has been a fun season. When we get to take a look at some of the names that have got those top 10s, Dexter Stacey, Brandon Watson, Mark Dilley getting, I believe he's got 2 or 3, Larry Jackson. One of the biggest names to get a top 10 this year that I think people will maybe not really look at is TJ Renamato getting a top 10 at GP3R, one of the biggest events of the racing season. It was really hot that entire weekend. The weather played a role in it, and he still came out and got a top 10. He and Ray Jr. Quartermash. Ray Jr. got his best career finish of an 8th place. I believe it was 8th place. Could have been 9th, but Simone Dion-Vienne getting a top 10 at Autodrome Chaudier. LP Montour, Daniel Bois in Toronto. Daniel Bois and MBS Motorsports repping them here tonight. MBS Motorsports. Of course, you can go and get Epic Racewear You can get your MBS shirt specific to Daniel Bois if you want as well. Donald Teach had a great season in his first run as a team owner after a terrible start to the season this year because of a parts shortage. He wasn't able to get the car ready in time. So that's always a difficult part. Rookie JP Bergeron had several great races and a beautiful looking number 1 Mustang, which hopefully we'll see more Mustangs next year. Really a great looking car. Sam Fellows, one of the best stories this year. 2 top 10 finishes, a 6th place at GP3R. That's huge for Jim Bray Racing. I'm not sure where that stacks the deck in terms of their best team finishes, but that might be one of the best finishes ever for that team. Obviously, Jake Sheridan, Kenny Schrader, Stuart Friesen getting top 10s at Ohsweken, another great story this season. Alex Labbe coming from the back to the front. Not in the top 10 there at Circuit Icar was Justin Arsenault, who had a fantastic finish for him. But for Fellows and for Jim Bray Racing to get 2 top 10s for that team this year shows that they're getting even better on the road courses. A parts failure at Icar, he could have probably had a top 10 there as well. Sam is another guy who I think is getting used to these race cars. He's got some funding behind him now. He's got some new sponsors. And hopefully we'll see him next season even improve even more. Whether he's back with Jim Bray Racing or if they go to a different team, clearly they've been improving and they've been trying at least to come out and get the race victories. Obviously, next year's schedule hasn't been released yet. We don't know the order in which these races are going to happen next year. But as of right now, we already know Eastbound Park is happening. We already know Ohsweken is happening. We already know GP3R is happening. Obviously, everything else is still up in the air. CTMP had the biggest reaction in terms of our poll on the NASCAR Pinty Series community page. It was one of the highest rated viewership, and in terms of likability, I think for me, the finish at Sutherland in Saskatoon, that first race with DJ Kennington and Andrew Ranger side by side, that was probably the best finish of the year. There's been a lot of them. Sunset Speedway to start the season was a good one. Kevin Lacroix and Gary Clute was a good one. Alex Gannett winning and holding off DJ Kennington and Marc-Antoine Cameron at GP3R is another one. Ohsweken with Friesen and Lapsovich getting the lead back from Friesen is another one. So it's crazy to say that we've had so many amazing finishes this year. I think you could say that Icar was a bit of a dud. It was pretty clear who was going to win that race right from the beginning. I think you could say CTMP, the second race, pretty good in terms of the battles, but we kind of could see that it was either going to be the 96 or the 74. No one else really got up there and battled and was close enough to really get the race victory. So obviously there's there. Chaudier was a good battle between the teammates. It was going to be a Paillet car that we could tell right away. Toronto was pretty well kind of sorted out, but the middle of the pack stuff was really crazy. There was a lot of passing, a lot of back and forth there. So overall, there's been so many good storylines this year. And as we head into 2023, Mike are going to be staying in place. We'll be talking about them here on the NASCAR Pinty Series Power Hour on GeForce TV throughout the offseason. There is going to be episodes. We are going to continue the conversations. We are going to go into who is back, who's not back, which races are we going to see. I want to hear from the fans and see what people have in terms of recommendations for the series for next year. We know that there's going to be changes. 100% there is going to be changes. More than likely, I would expect on the technical side there'll be changes. Rules, there'll be changes, especially after what happened during the middle of the season. There's going to be rules changes or at least rule clarifications. I expect that we're going to see a bit more presence of social media. We know that they do an amazing job, but towards the end of this season, really, they've been on the ball. I think timing and scoring is probably something that they're going to look at. I would expect that they're going to try and fix a lot of the problems there. We don't know what the field is going to look like, not just in terms of the cars and the teams and the drivers, but what is the leadership group going to look like next year? We really don't know. We don't know which officials will be back. We don't know if the series director is back. We don't know. All we know right now is Tony Spiteri is coming in for NASCAR Canada. We know that there's going to be more than likely a team here focusing on the series instead of conferring back and forth with NASCAR South. I think that that's a genius move for this series. Take it back to where it was. Yeah, it is on crooked. Just a little bit, Dustin. There. Better? Dustin Johnson, the golfer, right? But it's great. It's honestly looking like what we want to see. We want to get back to... I mean, it's tough to go back and say we want to get NASCAR back because it's not going to be back. It just won't. It's not. But having a team here focused here is the way to go. It is. At the end of the day, decisions should be met with people within the community up here. Should be dealt with the officials here. Rules should be dealt with here. Any sort of issues dealt with here. Hopefully that'll continue, and we'll see improvement next season. Obviously, there's a lot that we have to go forward and improve on. I think the website is something that we can look at. I think that the broadcasts are still very, very good. Social media game for not just the competitors but the teams as well would be very important to improve on. I think that there's a lot of things. Yeah, Dustin says. Oh, there's another one of them. There's another source for next year. I mean, you've got your income from your respective sponsors, but the reality is you need, and that's the key word, is you need supporters. They need partners next year. Reality is it's a tough sell. We know in racing in general is tough. Jim Haynes says, I think my favorite race so far was at Chaudier, as I like the layout of the whole place and I like short track. Second was Oswego, as I found it very entertaining overall. Chaudier is one of the more beautiful tracks that you don't think would look as nice as it does. There's some aerial shots of it, and it really is a beautiful racetrack. I'd like to see a second race there too, actually. I think if they're going to do another... Like, we only have 2 racetracks that we go twice, which if they go 13 races, let's go to 15 next year. I don't think that's going to happen, but I'd say Delaware Chaudier would be pretty cool. I know Quebec fans definitely want to see in more races out there. Tyler says, DiVincenzo says, there wasn't enough sliding at Oswego and was the same as asphalt. Well, I mean, lessons learned for this year. They can only do what they can do, right? The one thing I think they wanted to avoid was what they did with the Cup and the Truck Series was like at Bristol when all the cars overheated and they didn't even get the heats done before everything was a mess. So obviously they had to do what they did this year. I'm not in charge of the track. If they fix it next year, they fix it. I think it was a good deal. Yes, he is a heck of a golfer too. Rick Verburn says more ovals. But the problem is, Rick, I don't know if we have any more ovals in Ontario that we can go to. NASCAR's already told me no for Peterborough, for Flamborough. Sauble, I don't think that would ever happen. Jacas is still closed, so where else do you go, right? You're going to have to go out of province for ovals. Penticton Speedway, I was actually asked about this, and it's interesting. Penticton Speedway way out in BC. I don't know if they'd ever go back out to BC, Rick. You were probably you'd probably know better than I if BC's even in the thought process right now because RS1 is already out there, and RS1's kind of trying to make their own things, 2 at each, and scrap road courses. Yeah, but I agree with you, honestly, Rick. I if it were me, I would take iCar out. I just don't like it. I never have. I don't find the races very interesting. CTMP, I think that's a good one. GP3R, that's a good one. Toronto, hit and miss, really. I don't know if there's much to be gained there. It's hard to say. It's something that I'm hoping that we'll be able to see in the future. Jim says, even though I live in the States, I did buy 2 shirts and hats from Paye as a Chevy guy, and I wanted to show that if you put out good merchandise, people will buy it. Well, yeah, one's at 27, one's at 96. I think that's something that they're working on. Jim, it's a hard sell for a lot of race teams because we've done merchandise for our podcast, and it is ridiculous in terms of the costs. And unfortunately, trying to get people to make designs and print shirts and print hats out for a reasonable price is harder than it would seem. I mean, we know that getting high quality stuff isn't the easiest, but there are at least a couple of guys that are trying. Trayton Lapsovich has merchandise out. I know he's had a couple of problems. Scott Ferguson, too bad about Kawartha. Well, as far as I know, Scott, it's still standing. So it hasn't gone completely yet, but it still was expected to be going out. Unfortunately, though, it's like I said, Trayton Lapsovich has merchandise. MBS Motorsports has merchandise. Still waiting on our DJ Kennington merchandise to come out. DJ, I know he said he's been working on it. I think he's been working on it for a couple of years. But again, you got to put your money into the team, and I don't know whether or not people are really buying. And that's the thing is, I asked this question about why don't we have NASCAR Pinty Series merchandise, no T-shirts or anything like that, and unfortunately, I was told that they did for years, and no one bought them, and that was the reason I was given. I think that the audience has changed now. I think we're trying to continue to build it a little bit. Yes, Kyle, that would be fun. I think see them swap Penny's cars for horses. I don't know. I think Trayton has the advantage because I think he'd be the smallest on the horses. I think Mark might have a tougher time and TJ on horses. But Jim Haynes, the announcer, showed you the local guy, was very enthusiastic to say the least. As you could hear him over the guys on Flow, very much. The guys in Quebec love their motorsports. Absolutely love it. Jim, buy from that link to Pice. Yes, Sam. Sam's of understanding as to what's going on there. Vice versa, says Scott Ferguson. Yeah, it's a tough deal, man. We have good racetracks. Unfortunately, they're not around anymore, and the ones that we do have, they don't want to go to. I can understand Flamborough because there's no pit road, and maybe they don't want to do that. But Peterborough has a pit road. I believe there'd probably be some safety changes that they'd have to make and some improvements to the surface and everything. But I don't see it being a downside. CASCAR went there for many years and put on a great show. I think if you can go to a racetrack where you have to send people to a last chance qualifier, would be fun. We know that Newfoundland's a good racetrack. It's a very, very well built racetrack. They had some problems though with the barriers that they used, Jersey barriers, and I know that NASCAR doesn't really like that. Even though in Toronto we have Jersey barriers, it's kind of what you gotta have to do. It'd be something to be interested in for next year. You know, if they're gonna try and increase the field, something that you're gonna have to look at for next year. Sunset's one of those racetracks that I don't know whether or not it's got a future. I love it. I think it's a great surface, great track. But I don't know. There's a lot of question going on at that racetrack. I love the track. I love the seeing that we saw the APC series and the Pinty series and the OSS series there. It's a great racetrack. But again, whether or not we're going to see expansion into the series, you're going to have to go Ontario and Quebec. Those are your two places. That's the future. You can't go all the way out west and all the way out east again. It's too financially expensive for those guys, in my opinion. Again, that they might have a different opinion that they want to go out to BC, but I think it's too strenuous. Most of these teams, I mean, 3/4 of the teams are from Ontario. It's a long way out. I hear Friesen's going to run some road course races in the near future. Interesting. Friesen in this series at all is a good thing. I hope he gets into it with somebody. I think that'll be fun. Should take a look at Laird near the Salt on the near the Sioux on the Canadian side. Good old 1/3 of a mile short track, but it's fast. Would be an easy stop when the guys head for the borders. I'm not sure. I looked at Laird, Will, but I'm not sure if it's. Again, I don't know what NASCAR's looking for. If they don't like Peterborough and they don't like Flamborough, I don't know if they'd go to Laird. I think Montmagny in Quebec is more than likely one. Rick's, that's my choice would be Riverside. I think logically, if they can go Newfoundland, Riverside, and do 2 for 1, people would do that because Rick's told me several times, a lot of the drivers that we've interviewed, they have said that Riverside was the racetrack. You know, that was the track that all the drivers really loved and were really bummed to see it off the schedule. They liked the ownership group. They liked the track. Came down to funding, but maybe if you do a package deal with Newfoundland, they can get some. I think it's a much easier sell to try and sell sponsorship to Riverside if they're coming from Newfoundland, do it a whole Atlantic. You know, I'm said for a while, you know, McCain Fries is a perfect example. You've got Pinty's Chicken Wings as a sponsor of the series. Why not go and get your McCain when you're out in Atlantic Canada? That's a perfect mix. You go and get Alexander Keith's beer as well. You get something, your beer, fries, and wings all together for the weekend when you're out in Atlantic Canada. Why not, right? Jim Haynes says, now we were back on local control. Marketing will be much more focused as Daytona control. Yes, absolutely. It's different. You're going to have a guy here who knows the Canadian market. Tony Spiteri knows Canada. He knows Canadian businesses. He knows how to market the series. He's in a role now where he can do that. He's not just in charge of Pinty's, right? He's not even with Pinty's anymore. This is a big deal for that aspect of it, because the reality is you need contingency sponsors galore. They don't have a lot of those either. At least the ones featured on the cars, they seem to lose some from last year. So definitely having more and giving more to the companies that do invest. And I think that's the important thing, is there needs to be some sort of a value to a company that comes into this series. That's the biggest thing. We know in, say, let's take DJ Kennington's case. DJ has done a lot of promotional stuff for Castrol before. Now, as part of Wakefield Canada, he did that whole Castrol, I don't know what it was, Rick, but it was a video series that they did on YouTube, and it was him driving different vehicles around CTMP. That type of thing was great because that's showing off personality, it's showing off the product, it's showing off the Pinty series. I think the fact that they don't have really any commercials, the fact that we are kind of farther behind in terms of the social media aspect, the videos, the YouTube channels, the coverage that, say, Quebec has. People question, why is it that the series has so many Quebec fans or has so many Quebec drivers? And the reality is that they have a good market for racing out there. They market it a lot. Look at what Festi Drag TV does. They have a weekly show covering just the Quebec racers and Quebec tracks, Quebec series. It's much easier because those sponsors that invest into it have a weekly program that they can showcase. The problem with us is kind of on the off weeks and in the off season, it goes dead quiet. and then we don't hear anything until May. That's kind of needs to stop. We need an all year round. You need to be. You have to. You can't, in this day and age, expect to sign a company and not do anything for them. They've got to get something out of it. Jim Haynes going to the Rock was a very impressive race to pull off with the distance and cost. I think it was a real class act pulled off well. There were some challenges, Jim. There was some pretty big challenges. But they still came together and made it happen. And I mean, the race itself was really good. The track, I think, is great. I think it's a really, really good track, really good fit for the Pinty series. The Atlantic fans were easily some of the most passionate race fans that we've had, that I've had tune into the show, that I've chatted with. Absolutely perfect venue for this series. Now, if you add a combination event where you go to Riverside either after or before, I'm not sure what would go better, if it's before or after, but there's a way that they could do it. And I know that there's a ton of Atlantic Canada fans. I think you go and get names like the Butcher brothers. Those are two guys that are local Riverside drivers that made it big, that have won big races, that run perfectly impressive races. In late models, they've done the Snowball Derby. Jim, you're right. Cross promotion is a key to any sponsorship. And there are still teams that do not have social media managers, that don't have social media presence. They don't have Twitter. They don't have Instagram. They don't have even a Facebook page. And yeah, you'd say, well, Facebook, well, there's a lot of the population in the racing community that is still on Facebook. Lots of people that are on Instagram. Lots of people on TikTok. So there's things that you got to build. I think we've started seeing RGC Sports build that. We've started to see 22 Racing build that. That's what you need. Paille Racing's on the ball with their social media. Definitely Dumoulin Competition on the ball. Festi Drag completely on the ball. Where are we hearing the names of being on the ball for social media is all the Quebec teams, Quebec drivers. We need more of it. So EHR is getting better on it. They've started to post a lot more. In fact, they post weekly. It's something that you're going to have to do. I think we've seen that. I think you've got people in place. Jessie Trafford is one of the social media managers. She does a large portion of the NASCAR Pinty Series group. And that's all you needed. I think having people that are committed and want to grow the series, grow the sport, is going to go a long way. We're heading towards the end of this season. The biggest and most important thing for next year is that we don't stop the momentum. We keep it going. And unfortunately, there's a lot of times where it's easy to just get complacent and forget about the racing. Forget about it. You kind of have to keep going all season long, whether that's posting updates, whether that's doing a quick video, check-ins, talk about the season, small interviews, whatever. There's a lot that we can still do heading into next year. Obviously, we're getting towards the 13th and final race of this season. We're going to go back and we'll take a look. Let's just look at the finish here of our first race. And how about this courtesy of Flow Racing? And if you remember the games between the 8 and the 96, 96 tried to cross underneath contact and then to the inside when Trayton Lapsevich. We know Trayton would have been able to get his first win in other ways than passing somebody that made contact, but he still did and got his first win. He still had to hold off Rafael Lestard. And to his credit, Rafael did not wreck him. He could have, but he tried on the outside to do it clean. They had a side-by-side battle here. Almost pulled it off and almost went 3 for 3 at Sunset Speedway. did Rafael Lessard. Now, Rafael's season after this really didn't work out very well. He had a really tough season for EHR, but hopefully, again, he's another one that could win at Delaware Speedway. There's a lot of names, like I mentioned in the opening of the show here, that we could see be at the finale for the Fall Brawl. I think you've got at least 20 confirmed. And anybody after that is awesome. I don't know 100% on all these names, but I know Brandon McFarland had mentioned when he ran out at Newfoundland that maybe he'd be able to get, or maybe able to run at Delaware because they had such a good run in Newfoundland, and he desperately wanted to. So he'd be somebody that I'd hope that can still happen. The Josh Collins racing team, that 56, hopefully he'll be able to come out and run the finale. I haven't asked Chantel Kalika or Jamie Krizik. They both have run the finale at Jukasa in the past. Maybe they come out, maybe not. I know that for Chantel it's a little bit different because I don't believe her sponsorship comes with her if she were to come out for the finale. So maybe not. As we mentioned, Ray Morneau Jr., I think you definitely you'd have to check on. Cole didn't tell me that he was going to, but Cole Powell runs late models out of out of Delaware Speedway. He'd be somebody who's always game to run in the Pinty Series. I think Kyle Steckley is somebody else who you definitely would probably count on. I mean, he's been in the championship hunt for the late models. He'll be battling for the championship finale, also in the APC Series that weekend. So he'd be somebody I think we'd probably end up seeing there. Maybe Caden Lapsevich gets an opportunity. I hope that would be wicked to see if Caden gets an opportunity. I know Caden works out of White Motorsports, so maybe they have an opportunity for him to run the finale at Delaware. We know that DJ Kennington typically has that 28 car available. Maybe somebody goes in and tries to rent that car for the weekend. Jim Bray typically has an extra car. I think, there's another, Jake Sheridan's another name that runs out of Delaware Speedway. He got an opportunity already this year. So maybe Jake Sheridan's somebody else that we could see have an opportunity. That 3 car is going to be available. Now, Jason Hathaway, I didn't actually take a picture of this, but Jason Hathaway has he kind of teased having 4 cars there, which would mean the 3 car is going to be there. Now, who would run it is the interesting thing, because he did the zip emoji in his tweet, and I'm just thinking, like, there's so many names that could run that 3 car. I don't know who, though. Would Jason come out of retirement and run the finale? That would be wicked. I think we already know, Brett Taylor has already posted that he won't be in that car at Delaware Speedway. We don't really know what's going to happen with Brett. Brett's not sure where his future is. I would love to see, like, as Lane Zardo or J.R. Fitzpatrick, somebody that goes in the APC Series. If JR wins the championship in the APC Series, does he get an opportunity to run on the Sunday? I would love that. I think that would be that would be a really cool thing for one of these race teams to do, is that they have a car prepared, and whoever wins the APC Series championship the night before gets the opportunity to run the Delaware race in their car. Like, I think that would be wicked. I mean, I don't know whether that would ever happen. I doubt it, but it would be something fun. Jim Haynes says, Napa getting back into the series is big, as they have many stores in North America and fans don't know the difference which stores are involved, just know the logos, like the Castrol deal. I love seeing Valvoline in this series. I don't know when Valvoline is if it was ever in this series before, but I love seeing that. I love seeing a Napa car because it's got continuity with the Cup Series. It looks exactly like the Cup Series car. It's on a Dodge. I don't know if Kevin would make that switch to Chevrolet for next year on a Camaro. I would think it's a logical move, because then there's more comparisons. Maybe they do cross promotion with Hendrick Motorsports. A way to get Chase Elliott to potentially come up for an event. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. Jeffrey Hessels, I would be surprised if Kyle didn't run at Delaware. Me too. I mean, he ran at Saskatoon, right? You'd think he'd run at his home track. But again, it comes down to funding, right? We know APC, I think, sponsored him at Saskatoon. So he probably would need them to sponsor him then as well. Jeff Gottler. Jeff, nice to see you in the chat, man. You said that would be something. Jeff probably knows if there is somebody in the 3 car. He probably knows who it would be. Either way, I'm really ecstatic. Obviously, you're going to have a pretty loaded finale here. You look at it, okay, you got the one at Bergeron, Renamoto, the 3 car. I'd be interested to see Trevor Monahan ran at Oshweekend. Can't tell me Trevor Monahan wouldn't want to run the finale. Well, it's the last opportunity of the year, right? He knows how to run oval track races. He's done it a long time. So there's another guy there. Lassard in the 8 car, Watson. Matthew Kingsbury was expected. I don't know if he'll still do it, but Kingsbury hasn't come in for an Ontario Oval race yet. So that will be an interesting race to see him in. DJ, Alex, I'm just going off the top of my head here. Trayton. I said that 22 car again, potentially maybe that 22 for 22 Racing comes out. If it's going to be Kyle Steckley, he'd be in the 22. Then you got Andrew. The 28 car would be another one. Let's see. 36. Somebody posted, what about Dave Bailey coming out and running an oval race? I would love to see that. You, Jeff, I'm just a freight salesman from Chatham. You liar. No way. Maybe, Jeff, I don't know. But, so then we go Dave Bailey. I think Alex Gannett, last opportunity here. I mean, he hasn't gotten an opportunity to do an oval race this year yet. So he'd be somebody I'd like to see run the finale. Obviously, you get LP Dumoulin, 56 car, maybe McFarland from Newfoundland comes and runs. Gary Kloop, Brent Weller. We know Brent Weller is going to run. I think or somebody in his family has already announced that he's running the 61 at Delaware. So expect the 61 to be there. 64, Mark Dilly out there. 71 of Cathcart. 74 of Lacroix. Donald Teague would be back because the 80 car runs on ovals. 84, Larry Jackson. 92, Dexter Stacy. 96, Cameron. 98 of Sam Fellows. And then who else? Does the 07 come out and run? Do we get Alex LeBay for the finale? That would be a really cool situation as well. So there's so many things coming into this final race here. Don't know who is going to be there. Obviously, we'll have a better idea more than likely heading into next week. We'll do our possible entry list next week. We'll talk about, again, we'll continue our breakdown of people's seasons. Obviously, this type of stuff would be here. Dilly, Tim says, Dilly going to be in the seat or Sheridan? I believe Dilly is still going to be there. Is my understanding. I was told by a family member that he's there for the rest of the season. So, Gloria, yeah, Jeff the silent type, eh? I don't know about that. Tim says Sheridan has been good at Delhi this year. He really has been really, really good. I'd like to see Connor Pritico as well get an opportunity in a Pinty's car. Obviously, again, I'm just saying as many names out there as possible. Garrett Teemersma, Lane Zardo, guys that have been in competition for the championships in the super stocks. I think opportunities like that where you win a championship and you get an opportunity to race a Pinty's car. We've seen Shea Gemmel. That's another name. I mean, I don't know if the situation is still there, if that EHR return is possible, because North Country, has history with Shea. I don't know if they left on good terms or not, but Jim Haynes, I think Oshweekend is your midweek race that will attract more U.S. drivers now that it went well. You just can get rules at the border, relaxed at the point. Next year, I would imagine, Jim, is when that's going to happen. I think we're at a point now where it's the situation is the situation. We're going to deal with it each and every year. Oshweekend is going to be the big marquee event in terms of like getting U.S. names and big names on the dirt. Whereas I think the finale is where you're going to see a lot of the Canadian stars. And that's what I'm talking. Even at Jeff Gottler, that's a perfect example. Amber Balkan, get her from the ARCA series to come and run. I know she's probably got an ARCA race, but isn't that sponsored? Yes, it is, Tim. That's why I'm like, I don't know if that was a nice separation or not. But the only reason I connect the two, Tim, is because APC was, and Canusa was on the 3-car for Ken Schrader at Oshweekend, and APC Canusa sponsor Shea Gemmel in the APC series. So that's the only reason why I put those 2 and 2 together, that maybe there'd be that connection. Shea was very impressive if he ever gets an opportunity to run in the APC series. Obviously, Marc-Antoine Cameron would need to check his mirrors because I think he would get dumped after what happened last year at the racetrack. But obviously, we head into the finale with a lot of optimism, a lot of excitement, a lot of hope for the future. I think we've got some great names that have been here in the chat today. Jeff, Gloria. Jeff says, we talked about that last week coming in. She's interested. See, I've been on Amber's case, Jeff, to come out and do a couple races. She's got a great Canadian sponsor, an Icon. And I think I feel bad for her because I think she's got the talent. She's just had a really miserable season in ARCA this year. And yeah, Tim, you got to catch him first. That's true. It'll be fun though. It'll be a really good weekend, and I'm really hoping that everything goes well and the weather gets out of the way and we don't have any sort of that interfere. Obviously, I think Delaware has been incredibly impressive. I think you get somebody like a Jewel Lawrence. Jeff says he spotted for Connor Pertico last Friday. He would do well in a Pinty's car. That's impressive to hear. From a guy like Jeff Gottler saying that. If Jeff Gottler's saying that he would do well, then he would do well. Jake Hooker is another person I think would do really well in a Pinty's car. He was going to get the opportunity at Oshweek and unfortunately didn't have that NASCAR license. I think Joe and Chris Lawrence would be very fun to come into the series as well. I think both of those guys are loads of fun, and I would love to see more of these names come on in. I think we've got the teams. If not, the OSS series is waiting there. They've had a really successful season. They had a former CASCAR competitor, underdog of all underdogs, and Kevin Trevlin win the championship in the final race this past weekend at Flamborough Speedway. So I think there's opportunities here for a really good series ladder system with super stocks and OSS. I think late models have a very good ladder system as well. Jake next year at Oshweekend, Tim Gerald says. I think Jake Hooker, he's definitely in it next year. That's for sure. I think if you get names like Stuart Friesen to come on in, Cameron Haley would be a name to come back as well. I know he's been running an RS1. Jason White has run out an RS1 this year. I think it would be cool to have an RS1 combination where the RS1 champ gets an opportunity to race at Delaware in the finale. There you go. There's another opportunity there. So you've got so many names that we could potentially look at next year. I think you've got names like Caden Lapsovich is a name that if Paye was going to go to a third car, if they wanted Chevrolet, if Chevrolet came in, wanted a driver to rep, and a guy that really does need that sponsorship to continue his racing career, Caden Lapsovich would be the guy, if he wants to, of course, be in a car. Jim Haynes, is there really any difference between an ARCA K&N car and a Pinty's car now? I'm not on the technical side, but I believe they're still completely different, but I could be wrong. More likely Jeff and Tim would be able to answer that question a bit more. I think ARCAs are essentially just old Cup cars. These are not even close to Cup cars. Very different in terms of not just the weight, but the stuff that goes into them. Of course, these cars don't have sheet metal, right? So it's a very different as well. But as we head into next year, guys, I really am glad that we got this opportunity on G-Force TV. We'll be here throughout the off season. Obviously, this series is something I absolutely love and I'm passionate about, and I'm hoping that we'll continue to be stronger next year. Hopefully we'll have a bit more opportunities to showcase stuff going on with the race drivers and teams throughout the series. And I just want to thank all those names there on the photo credit, because there's really great photos out there that all those guys have taken. I cannot take credit for any of the photos that have been used in today's graphics. These are all the amazing Matthew Manners photos, or they are either James Jordan or Michael Wallace's from the Wide World of Motorsports. Pretty sure they're James Jordan's. My dad, he has had a couple of photos out here. I think we changed some of those though. And then Team 3 Red for the photo of Brett Taylor there. So look at those amazing photos that we are able to use. The race photos that we got for the results. We've had a great conversation here tonight. We took a while to get going. Had a little bit of fun here tonight. We'll be back next week for our Delaware preview. We'll figure out who's going to be on the entry list, who's going to win, and who's going to get second place in the championship. Obviously, I think the reality is DJ is going to be really tough to beat, but anything can happen. I want to thank Spencer Mullen once again for all of his help. Clinton Jeffrey, Adam Ross, the team at GeForce TV. All of you for tuning in once again. This has been the NASCAR Pinty Series Power Hour on GeForce TV. I want to thank you guys all for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe and catch Race Rivals Race Chat every Wednesday with our friends Clinton and Adam. Catch us every week, 7 o'clock on Mondays. Thank you, everybody. Have yourselves a great week. We'll chat next week.